afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Glyzel P. Ramos, and I am a recent fisheries graduate from Aurora State College of Technology in the Philippines. And now I am currently employed as a fisheries technician in our local government unit here in Casiguran, Aurora. My topic was all about fisheries vulnerability to climate change of capture fisheries and aquaculture in Northern Aurora, Philippines. Severe threat to the ecosystem is posed by climate change, even now considered by humans as one of the great challenges to survival. However, studies that mitigate such issues are still deficient. And according to the Philippine Statistics Authority 2021, the marine municipal and commercial production in Aurora is decreasing from the year 2002 and to the recent 2020. And that is why climate change vulnerability assessment is important because it is critical for better understanding and decision making. Thus, this study aims to determine the vulnerability assessment to climate change to the two coastal municipalities in Northern Aurora, Philippines, particularly in Casiguran and Dinalungan. Identify their top commodity produce, gear use in capture fisheries, propose adaptive strategies, and propose policy for coastal management to combat climate change. And this is the framework of the study. We have here the vulnerability, which divided into two, the adaptive capacity and potential impact. And the potential impact, we have two set, the exposure and sensitivity, which tell us how exposed and sensitive the community to climate change. And the result is the potential impact to the community. And the adaptive capacity inform us about the strategies that the community employs whenever there is a phenomenon occur in their area. And these two groups, the potential impact and adaptive capacity, will tell us or will report on the area's vulnerability. The Modified Fisheries Vulnerability Tool or Fishbowl was used to gather information. With the use of questionnaires, interviews were conducted for each barangays within 3 months of the duration period. The data analyzed using the Modified Fisheries Vulnerability Assessment rubrics, and the computed result is using Fishbowl Excel system by Aquila et al. 2021. And this is the study site of Casiguran and Dinalungan. For the Casiguran, we have San Ildefonso, Coso, Kulat, Esperanza, Luwal, Marikit, Calangcosan, Calantas, Tinib, Dibacong, Dibet, Bianuan, Estebes, Calabgan, and Ditinagyan for both aquaculture and capture fisheries. For the Dinalungan, we have Dinalungan, Zone 1, Dibaraybay, Mapalad, Simbahan, Abuleg, and Ditawini. For the result and discussion, we have three components: sensitivity, exposure, adaptive capacity. And each component, we have set of parameters: score, average score, vulnerability index. For the sensitivity, we have 5 parameters. The first one is compare catch rate 20 years ago and mortality of cultured commodity with the scores of 2.80. And this score shows that capture fisheries and aquaculture experience a decrease in catch rate, which indicate that these two municipalities are affected by climate change for the past 5 to 20 years of spending their time fishing and farming. They even added that from the past decade, catching effort is less compared to catch capacity. It's because they said that as time goes by, the number of fisher folk increase, which means that the coastal resources of the Casiguran and Dinalungan is degraded due to the population growth. Furthermore, the aquaculture farmers experience half of the mortality rate from their cultured commodity due to some problems such as temperature changes, water quality, disease and parasites, and extreme weather events which cause stress, ultimate death, and the reason why some farmers stated that their cultured commodity growth rate is normal and fluctuating and barely enough to cover their family's expenses. For the parameters number 2, average length of fish catch and growth of the cultured commodity, we have the scores of 4. And this shows that the growth and length of both cultured and catch is normal but fluctuating. Since the catch rate of fisher folk is depend to the weather condition, like for example, during burn months, they catch few fish because it is northeast monsoon monsoon season, and it is difficult for them to go fishing because due to the strong wind. And the reason for the fluctuation in aquaculture is due to farm growers' lack of water monitoring, stress from extreme weather conditions, and the diseases. For the parameters number 3, dependence on the fisheries resource, we have 2.99, and this shows that 50% of their needs came from the fisheries resources. For the parameters number 4, household age structure, we have 3.25, and it shows that the household age structure is range from 41 to 55 years old. Parameters number 5, health condition, 2.24, and this shows that all of the fisher folk here in Kasiguran and Dinalungan are all healthy and no special health needs, only the vitamins. For the exposure, we have 3 parameters: fishing ground and hatchery to weather, household site assessment, and community site assessment. And they are all 5. And this shows that the farmers and fisher folks claim that their fish pond, fishing ground, household, and community sites are subject to frequent weather disturbances, making them more vulnerable. Pag-asa reports that between 2020 and 2016, 20 average tropical storms entered the Philippine area of responsibility, with 7 of the 2020 typhoons affecting the province of Aurora, according to DOST Pag-asa 2011. Adaptive capacity, parameters number 1, income from fishing, we have 2.99, and this shows that 50% of the annual income of our fisher folks are generated from culture and fishing. Respondent also stated that during the Northeast monsoon or the amihan, they work extra hours in construction, hog raising, rice farming, and coconut farming to meet their family needs. Parameters number 2, awareness to climate change, we have the scores of 2.34, and this shows that only 20 to 40% of the household member know about the climate change. And also, they said that it is not enough for them to attend one seminar a year. So these findings reveal that the farmers lack knowledge about climate change awareness, and how climate change affect their livelihood is due to a lack of support system or programs. For the parameters number 3, access to information, we have 3.61, and this shows that when there is a disaster in their community, they only have 3 to 4 sources of information, include the television, the internet, family and friends, and the barangay officials. For the parameters number 4, adaptive strategies, we have 2.75, and unfortunately, due to some limited understanding and knowledge, their precautionary measures or adaptive strategies range from 3 to 4, like for example, securing their boats and house, going to evacuation center, and even considering shifting to other source of livelihood when bad condition happens. And for the aquaculture, they only have one adaptive strategies to secure their pond site, and that is putting a net on the dark so that cultured fish do not escape. For the parameters number 5, literacy, we have 3.64, and this shows that most of the household member and registered fisher folk is high school non-graduate and high school graduate. And for the parameters number 6, gear modification and culture practice modification, we have 4.24, and this shows that fisher folks are provided with some gear modification, like using artificial bait and using modified cloth as bait, and with both limited knowledge and resources, gaining only but limited success. And when it comes to aquaculture, they can support their pond modification since farmer literacies are high school dropouts and high school graduate, making it difficult for them to find other income-generative livelihoods or better job to support their pond modification. Even though they have some knowledge on how to make change, but the problem is lack of resources or a lack of budget. And lastly, for parameters on adaptive capacity, number 7 is the support system and programs, and we have 1.88. And this shows that only one support system or programs in response to climate change is done, include the seminars, workshops, trainings that inform and educate people on the current issues of climate change. And we have here the legend, the low, medium, and high. And as you can see, the map of Kasiguran and Dinalungan are both high. And it is red, so which means it is vulnerable. And as you can see here, we have the rank system. You can say that if it is low, then it is less than or equal to 2. Medium, if it is 2.001 to 4. And high, if it is greater than or equal to 4.001. For the sensitivity overall average assessment value, we have 3.056 and it is medium. For exposure, we have a total of 5 and it is high. And for the adaptive capacity, we have 3.07, it is medium. And for the potential impact, since the sensitivity we have is medium, exposure is high, so crossover, we have the potential impact is high. And for the vulnerability, adaptive capacity is medium, and the potential impact that we have is high. So vulnerability is high. And that is why Kasiguran and Dinalungan is red, and these are vulnerable. And we are vulnerable. Result and discussion. According to the data gathered, there were a total of 5 commodities that are all vulnerable, namely Tunus albacares, Nemipterus hexodon, Katsuonos pelamis, Oxystazard, and Gaza minuta. And for the aquaculture farming, we have 2 commodities which are the Chanus janus and Oreochromis niloticus, and adaptive strategies and ordinance established by municipality to combat climate change. For the conclusion, aquaculture and capture fisheries in Kasiguran and Dinalungan are extremely vulnerable to climate change, with high potential impact as the Kasiguran experience a high frequency of weather disturbances, making farmers vulnerable to climate change. This is according to 100% of farmers and fisherfolk. There are only 2 commodities produced in aquaculture farms in Kasiguran and Dinalungan, which are tilapia, the Oreochromis niloticus, and bangus, the Chanus janus. On capture fisheries, there were 5 commodities, namely, as I said earlier, there are Tunus albacares, Nemipterus hexodon, Katsuonos pelamis, Oxystazard, and Gaza minuta. And there are some adaptive strategies to combat climate change. And these are: number 1, building leaves around the pond complex and installing run pipes. Second, to prevent cultured commodities from escaping, vertical net must be performed. Number 3, constructing a fish shade to reduce the temperature of the water. And number 4, furthermore, building a fish pens that can withstand the effects of climate change. And we have no fish pens here in the Kasiguran and Dinalungan, so we can try that. And for the capture fisheries, regulation on fishing within the territorial waters, establishing marine protected area in selected coastal barangays are established by Municipal Agriculture Office of the 2 municipalities. And here in the Kasiguran, we have a total of 6 MPA. For the recommendation, the government must provide additional livelihood programs, budgetary planning for each association because they are much more vulnerable than the other sectors. Second is prohibit the use of illegal and destructive fishing gear along the Dinalungan and Kasiguran coast. For the impact and outcome of the study, given the paucity of the research on the function of vulnerability assessment in this field, this research study largely served as a baseline for future research. As such, it might be considered a groundbreaking work in a new field of study. Additional knowledge on how to assess the address the vulnerability present by making and implementing applicable programs. And that is all. Thank you, and peace be with you.